Welcome to the Baby Boomer Babe Show with your host, Lady Lou, connecting you with friends, great stories, and wonderful adventures.
Hello from Lady Lou, the Baby Boomer Babe. I'm so glad you're here for this episode of What's Going On in My World. It seems my life is full of little adventures. Have you ever noticed that in your life too? I call this episode Life's Little Adventures. One day a couple of months ago, I was in a fast food restaurant. I generally avoid these places, but heck, I'm hung up on French fries. Yep, that's one of my vices. So once a month, I pop in and get my French fry fix. As I sat there munching away, I noticed the people sitting around me. One couple was in their 60s. They were neatly dressed. She had on a navy blue pantsuit, a colorful blouse, and nice jewelry. He was wearing dress slacks and a button-down collared shirt. They were dressed to go to town. Nothing fancy, just neat and clean. No cutoffs, T-shirts, and flip-flops for them. When we baby boomers were growing up, we had good clothes, like Sunday clothes for church and school clothes. Then we had old clothes for playing and doing chores. Since I grew up on the farm, I had farm clothes. I was crazy about overalls. Oh, sweet memories. Anyway, back to my story. This nice couple in the restaurant was doing something I haven't seen in a long time. They were sharing a soft drink. Their cup had 2 straws in it, and they took turns sipping it. Doesn't that bring back fond memories from hanging out at the malt shop? Every time I go places, I make it a point to people watch. It's such fun to guess what people do by the clothing they wear. Another man at the fast food place that day was also in his 60s. He was wearing slacks, dress slacks, and a white starched long-sleeve shirt and tie. I pegged him as a banker or loan officer. Definitely an office guy, probably the boss. I don't see this type in fast food joints very often. He just probably needed his burger fix. Just then, several men walked in to order their lunch. They were obviously a work crew with blue jeans, shirts, and heavy work boots. They may have been a line crew with the electric company, or possibly ranchers. A bit later, a group of teenage girls rushed in. Noisy, giggling, and having a wonderful time together. They were dressed down, to say the least. Shorts, tiny little tops that barely covered their navels, floppy shoes, and long, stringy hair. I could just hear my mother saying, "Brush your hair out of your face, stand up straight, and mind your manners." Oh, those were the days, weren't they? I don't think teenagers ever hear any of these words. Isn't it strange how we remember little things from our growing up years? The first curse word I ever heard came from my own father. He had been in the Navy, and I'm sure you've heard the old expression, cuss like a sailor. Well, his language could be rather salty at times. Mama finally had to sit down on him and let him know the error of his ways, as they say. She didn't want her children exposed to that kind of language at such a tender age. We were maybe 5, 6, or 7 at that time. Heck, we didn't even know they were cuss words, much less what they meant. I think that's called innocence. I don't think kids these days are innocent very long, are they? Too much internet and television. Thankfully, Daddy did clean up his language. Then one day he caught Mama saying the 4-letter S word. She had to be really provoked to use that word. So Daddy asked her, "Can't you use chicken do instead?" Her reply was, "It just isn't the same." I'll never forget that. It was just too funny. My mother was really feisty like that. She was just barely 5 feet tall, but she was mighty. She had to be. Raising 3 kids, keeping a 2-story house, and helping run a 180-acre farm was a big job. Growing up on the farm had so many advantages for us kids. We actually had responsibilities. Remember those things called chores? Some of today's kids know nothing about these, carrying out the trash and picking up the rooms. I was only 6 when we moved to the farm. My first chore was locking up the chickens at night. Had to keep them safe from the foxes and whatever else might want to eat them. I think it was about the 3rd night of doing this chore, and it was almost dark, so I had to hustle to get out there to close the door. As I went through the gate, I spotted this long black thing stretched out across my path. Yikes! I started screaming, and Daddy came running. It was a harmless black snake, but Daddy killed it. He later regretted it because those snakes helped keep down the mice and rats in the barn. After that, we rarely killed a snake unless it was poisonous and was a threat to us or the animals. As farmers, we soon learned to be stewards of the land. Another funny about chickens was the very first morning I had to go out to the hen house and gather the eggs. I had a little basket and was very carefully picking up the eggs from each of about 20 nests. They were all lined up on one wall of the chicken house. Little did I know, I was also picking up the dummy eggs that were placed there to entice the hens to jump in. Some of them were wooden and some were glass. They looked just like eggs to a city kid like me. I soon learned the difference, but it took a long time for me to live down that goof. Hey, I was 6. What can you expect from a kid? Another lesson I was learning was how to get the eggs out from under the little red hens sitting in the nest. I tried to put my hands under the first one to reach the eggs, and she pecked me. Ouch! That hurt. Hens can be rather protective, and their little beaks are sharp. I ran back to the house, and Mama came back out with me, and I got this lesson on gathering eggs from under the hens. Still got pecked a few times, but I learned to reach under them quickly before they knew what was happening. They always gave me this puzzled look like, "What did you just do?" Kind of ruffled their feathers sometimes, but I got the eggs. That's all I cared about. If you're a baby boomer and raise chickens, you know well how stupid chickens are. To quote a phrase, they don't have the sense God gave a goose. Their little brains use instinct only. They know when to gather around if you're scattering grain for them to eat, and when to run from what they perceive as danger. The shadow of a hawk circling overhead, a dog or fox chasing them, and loud noises. They have a special squawk that alerts the other chickens to danger, and then the whole flock scatters like little pieces of paper in a high wind. Those little boogers can run fast. They can even fly for short distances. But they're still stupid. Sorry, God. Every time we wanted to catch one for dinner, we had this 4-foot piece of heavy-duty wire with a U-shaped hook bent back on the end of it. We would have to corner several hens and snag one by the leg with that hook. It seems they always knew what was about to happen, and they were in no hurry to become our dinner. Back in those days, to us farmers, dinner was the midday meal, and we called the evening meal supper. I have often wondered why the world got so sophisticated that now they call dinner lunch and supper is now dinner. Weird, huh? I still call supper. We raised lots of chickens every year so we would have food on the table. Remember those days when we raised and grew our own food. Most young people these days think fried chicken comes from KFC. I remember when it was called plain old Kentucky Fried Chicken, don't you? Guess the younger generation is in such a hurry nowadays that they have to shorten everything. McD's is still McDonald's to me, and BK is still Burger King. Gee, the new generation has abbreviated stuff to the point I have a hard time keeping with what they all mean. Do you ever have that challenge too? I'm just not in that big a hurry to rush through life. There are so many stories of growing up on the farm. I would not trade 1 minute of it for all the tea in China. I grew up happy, healthy, and wise in the ways of animals and nature. It is serving me well now that I'm living in the country again. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed my little rambling, and we'll come back again soon for another episode of The Baby Boomer Babe. I have lots more memories and stories to share. Please do share these podcasts with your baby boomer friends. Let's grow our community. Thanks. This is Lady Lou, the Baby Boomer Babe, saying goodbye for now.
Stay tuned for each episode to discover the new experience in building fun and community.